I wrote some things to not forget. Topics. I explained the PR 5 minutes ago about YesSql 3.0 and the fact that there is no trial on Thursday. I have an appointment. Then demos. Who's got demos? Everyone's fighting to do a demo.
No demos from me, but I did hear a rumor that Soltown was going to turn up with a demo. So maybe later.
The demos. We can look at the. I'm at a branch. I'm at a branch. Auto. Can take a look at it. We'll see changes of YesSql 3.0. So let's see the status. Orchard 1. Here. Nothing new. Orchard call. It's updated. Filtering dev. So what do we have? When was it? April 4. This. No, 30. Here. This is morning, this is morning, this is morning. This is afternoon. Okay. Update LangVersion, which I assume has been reverted because Razor doesn't support 9 on Netcore 3.1. So we can't use.
Not quite reverted yet because I forgot about it. But
okay. Let's do it.
So it works with 5, and it works fine with 3. But if you use C# language version 9 stuff in 3, you do get some weird compilation errors.
Okay, it's just because we don't have any example right now.
Yeah, I tried it and it just goes weird.
Or maybe it's because it's in a project that we don't build or we don't package for 3.1.
I tried it in the theme project. And,
okay. I got an exception. I don't remember where, but I saw that on my side, on the slide, somewhere on my build. Okay, so that remaining OpenID classes to OpenID collection table, which means that more things go inside the same OpenID document table now. And it required a change in YesSql. You fix some things. Fixes, to buffer already rendered. When was that? I tried to understand. That was last week we talked about this plugin was fixed, and since then, the day after the meeting, there were some changes there. Okay. Yeah, this I didn't know. I don't know the difference either, by the way. This is a read memory and it's a span, but I don't know what's the difference. All right. It matters. Then. Okay, we trust theory on this one. It made sense when I saw the PR. So this one, remove enable use feature from layers integration. Remove enable use feature. Oh, migration. Yeah, you read integration, migration. Okay. So you're trying to force that. but it doesn't work.
It does work, but now JT made improvements last week where it isn't necessary.
Good.
Which is better.
The idea being that if you do a new update of a module or a feature that requires now another feature, then it will enable the other feature automatically. Fix shape AddAsync in place of add. Yes, some old usage of the add method, which should be async in some places, in some templates. And this one based on a comment I made last week about this hash code, that there is a helper in the corrupt 3.1 to build hash codes based on multiple values. Good. Monaco editor PR was merged. Some more changes later. We'll see why. If it was a weak Monaco, I had one feedback about the UI. I don't think we should have the border around at least this one, because it makes super weird. I don't remember for the other ones, but this one, it has the standard bootstrap, like text area border, and it's like too much for this thing. That's my stupid comment I have to make on this PR. And I don't think the PR does anything for that. It's just that for this specific editor, maybe we need to hide the border of the bootstrap thing. Should have taken a picture to show you. But we have the Monaco editor with all the languages supported. Fix fluid operators parsing because it was breaking. So theorists who tried to upgrade to the dev branch because of the new .NET patch that broke 3.1. And well, RC2 actually, and so he found a bug, which was that if you wrote in a liquid template A equals B without a space between equals and B, that would fail. It would not parse it. So the mitigation was to add a space, but now it's fixed. It supports that. So if there is no ambiguity, it will parse it. If there is an ambiguity, it won't parse it. Or something like, lots of things related to operators I fixed, to parsing very weird things. So that's it. Prevent trace of compilation in production. And this one has an interesting story. I was testing Orchard Core on .NET 6. Or maybe it's not related. How did I see that? So I was testing Orchard Core on .NET 6, also doing some performance stuff. And I don't, oh, no, yeah. We're testing .NET 6, and David Scholar was trying to optimize some things based on some traces and dumps I took. And he saw that Roslyn was all over the place in the dump. And he said, you have Razor compilation enabled. I said, no, because I'm using production. And he said, yes, because it's there in the dump. So I checked. And yes, even when you deploy, I could feel it like the first time you go in the view, it's slow, like it's compiling. So I had to refund the issue and fix it. See here, not use Razor compilation if it's in production. So if it's not in development, or if it's in development, use the runtime compilation. This way you can change the files dynamically also. So that is fixed, but this fix broke something else. We'll see that. Webpack 5, because we had security notification from a dependency that was from the previous Webpack version. So now this is fixing it. Thank you. Actually, it was not easy because it impacts a lot of things. Or maybe Graph well was using a different version. lots of things from the Panabot, but Antoine fixed it because we don't want to see a commit every hour whenever any version of our JavaScript dependencies get an update like this. So now it should be running every week. And it creates a PR that we can not merge if we don't agree with that. I think we still have to check if we can update the PR to just say don't take that.
It seems a little odd to update these dependencies without rebuilding the actual packages that are using them, or the scripts that are actually using them.
Oh, I see.
Like, bump bootstrap there.
Yeah, so here it's wrong actually, because it doesn't change anything for us. Until it's integrating the CI, the rebuilding, so these changes are not taken into account actually. Yeah. So makes sense? Or the next one to get the build and to actually know, because you have to call the build pipeline.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So yeah, so this is not updated. Just the package config file, package JSON files are updated, but not the assets. Okay.
Yeah, so what that actually means is when somebody then randomly goes to compile one thing, it changes 100 things, which is a little challenging for particularly new contributors trying to contribute to the gulp file stuff.
So I'd say at least when there is a PR from Nepanabot with JavaScript updates, someone needs to update the PR and rebuild everything. But it can't be done automatically.
Yeah.
Or another option is when there is a PR from Nepanabot on JavaScript things, there is a custom workflow that is triggered to also build the assets. And also run then the unit test again, because you need to run the functional test with the new assets. It's not easy. Interesting. Okay. Jint 3.0, just updating dependency. I don't know what's new there, some bug fixes. Fixes ubuffer out of range exception. There were still some out of range exception in some specific code path that Chantieri fixed by centralizing the usage of the view buffer template when any free template is actually rendered, not in every piece, and also where it's necessary, like the stringify filter, anti-forgery token, and fixing one call here to optimize using the dot span. Same change as earlier, which I don't know. Oh, no, it's adding, in this case, the chunk is empty. Check. Use DeferredTask in ContentStep. ContentStep. Recipes. Fixes 3 issues. Most changes here are just cosmetic changes.
Yeah, the biggest change in this one is in the ContentStep. Well, we still have a few questions for JT.
I don't like this kind of calls using the async local. If we need to be able to resolve services dynamically, we should pass the state that lets us define what's the current scope. Or in the method, not in the constructor.
Yeah, so what this issue is actually fixing is sometimes when running the ContentStep through migrations, the content tries to get created before all the indexes have been created for workflows, for example. So here he's added, moved the ContentStep to a deferred task, which means it happens in a new scope to the rest of the recipes or migrations. So the thing probably seeking to clarify here is what would happen to exceptions then, because they no longer run as part of that, because that's now in a completely different scope.
But in a migration, when we run a recipe migration, the table should be created before?
Not necessarily for all the index tables. Workflows is a good example where it uses the requires features attribute, so it gets turned on, but the migrations for it, for the indexes haven't actually run, but the service is still registered, so when save gets called and when flush gets called.
So isn't it because it's missing a dependency on the feature level? Because the migration are supposed to run in the opposite order.
Mostly it's related to the requires features stuff, which JT was working on and ended up going a different direction. Because the requires feature stuff isn't taken into account during migrations. Only the feature dependencies are. So, for example, in the contents module, it activates some workflow stuff when workflows is enabled.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit out of sync there. So
I see, because it's an attribute on the startup class and doesn't know at this point.
Yeah, so probably a little more to look at here, I would imagine.
So maybe the require attribute should just be a manifest metadata, like an implies, or still called require, but it's like implies for permission. But at the manifest metadata, not in the startup class. The startup class should just be assigned to a feature, but the fact that there's two different things. The fact that there is a require attribute means the service is loaded. So the startup class is used, but we might need another piece of metadata.
Yeah, I understand the problem here, but I don't necessarily understand the solution at this point.
It's a patch.
Yeah, we see.
That may cause other issues.
Yeah, probably my biggest concern at the moment is what happens in terms of exceptions, like validation exceptions now importing content items. They're moving off into a deferred task. Where do they surface? Because they won't surface in the controller anymore that's calling these things.
Yeah, but still in the same request. So
still the same request, yeah. I'm not sure. I need to understand a bit more.
Because this is just executed when the request is finalizing, and we need to, that is just a middleware that will read those lambdas and execute them on the way back of the middleware, and then commit the transaction.
Yeah, but in the recipe execution stuff, we try catch things.
Okay.
And this would escape those try catches because, of course, it will happen later.
Try catch, and also the current service scope. There might be new service scopes for some tasks, and they are lost. So this ContentStep won't run in the same service scope as another one. As another step that should have been the case. Okay. Update Azure.Storage.Blobs, update fluid. This morning, someone found out that the raw tag was not rendered. It was not, so now it's fixed. upgrading to YesSql 3. I will show you the difference, but it's a breaking change, so I want to show you what's breaking for everyone. Breaking everything. Update auto setup documentation. Okay, maybe a better example than agency having.
Yeah, it's just a little weird for the agency to be running as the kind of host tenant, because you don't get the tenant's UI enabled in the admin and stuff. So just updating that to make it a little bit more, a little better, for an example.
Placement for dashboard widget with placement files. Nobody knows why it works, but it works. Because content type is also looking at stereotype. But later we'll check also the stereotype property instead. It will be better, more obvious what's doing there. Yeah, so yeah, I hate when there are 2 lines red, 1 green. Just mean that this one has been removed. So it's just saying place that content type, sorry, that part for this display type determine, which is used for dashboard on the widgets, but better is only if the content type is a dashboard widget. In this case, it's actually stereotype is a dashboard widget, which is not available in the driver at this point. And the goal is to fix the blog or any list part, just because it's also using detail admin and it was just showing more things like markdown, title in the list part, which was not visible before, but with that it was visible. So that's rehiding them. Good. Questions, comments. Demos. I will start with that. So going back on this PR, so I didn't want to merge it yet because I wanted to announce what it's doing and how it will break your applications before you decide to update it. The idea of that is multiple things. The first idea is that before this version, every session in YesSql will create a transaction automatically by default, as in database transaction and transaction object in .NET. And when I say every session all the time, it means even if your session is only doing reads. But when you are doing reads, and if your transaction isolation level is the default one as in the database, you don't need a transaction because every read will be using the same isolation level. So this version introduced that change that when you start a session, like when you start a request in Orchard, if you just do reads like selects, then it won't create a transaction. But on the first time you do a change on an object and you call save, and then the transaction, and then some things needs to go into the database, then it creates a transaction automatically. So now it's lazily creating a transaction if there are update statements or insert statements or delete statements, any change. That's the first change. So this one is transparent. There is nothing to do. It's just that it's creating a transaction optionally if it's required. The second change is that if you really want to decide when the transaction is created and not wait for it to be automatically created, you can now call a begin transaction. But sure, we have examples here. I won't be able to find an example of that. That's okay. So we can call begin transaction, and that will create a transaction or return the existing one if one is still open. Okay. And then there is another property that is .current transaction that will give you either the existing transaction or null if there is no transaction. That's a way to check if there is a transaction. So that other change is that everything has been renamed from commit async to save changes async. It's like anti-framework, and it's more obvious to know what it does. It saves the changes. And what it means is that at that point, if there is a transaction, it will be committed and then released. If there is no transaction, it will just do nothing. But this is why this is where, in our case, we should have it somewhere in the middleware. We do our actual commit when the request is done. But here, maybe here. That's document store.
Yeah, I think document store is actually one that now manages.
Yeah, its own session, but because it's a singleton and or because it's a scoped object, something like that. It has its own session. But so here, that's the one. Yeah. So this is what it's called. And there is still the auto flush, meaning if you do some updates and then you do a query to read some data, it will flush the changes to the database without committing the transaction, but your next request will be able to read the values that are in the database. Very useful. OpenId is calling save changes everywhere for some non-obvious reasons. I assume it should just be flush or just do nothing. Honestly, if the tests are sufficient on OpenId, we should try to just remove these calls and see that it still works, because it will still work. And by not calling it, it won't commit the transaction. So everything else that can happen after will be in the same transaction. That's the way it should be done. So I don't really agree with how it's done here, unless it's proved to be not working this way.
I think that was just done that way because it was following what the
EF
identity stuff was doing. And one of the problems with calling save changes like this is it removes the ability to actually cancel the session later due to other reasons.
Yep. That's something I mentioned with Shai, who works on the EF team, when we talked about these patterns and the fact that we were doing it this way per request. And I think he said that it was not something that could be done with EF in this case, or it was, he didn't think about this way of doing that. But at the same time, oh yeah, there is a big change. Well, I forgot to mention. Yeah, so and that's what I wanted to say at the same time. So something that you can't do with YesSql before this version is, let's say you start creating a session and there is an exception in the middle. If you didn't do a try catch and call cancel on the finally, or on the catch, sorry, then it will commit the transaction because the disposing the session was committing the changes. So in ASP.NET, we don't have this issue because there is we will wrap the main middleware with a try catch and catch any exception that happens in anywhere in the pipeline. But in some other apps, if you forget a try catch, it will commit the changes, even if it didn't go over the full list of commands you wanted to execute. So that was a big issue with YesSql. So now that's actually changed, meaning that if you don't call save changes now, it won't save anything. You have to call save changes at some point to commit the transaction. And if you go to the disposing the session before you call save changes, it will cancel a transaction if it exists and close the connection. So save changes is now mandatory. Commit was not. Save changes is mandatory if you want to save the changes. That's also to mimic the EF behavior.
So the session itself is still disposable. It still needs to be disposed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you forget to dispose it, there is a finalizer that will, so when the GC is invoked on your session and that was not disposed, it will call the finalizer that will close the connection and transaction. But you should not come to that. You should dispose the session always. That's why the session is always in a using scope, or in the case of Orchard, we have a bit try catch, and at the end of the middleware, we dispose the session explicitly. We save the changes and dispose the session, which was there. Well, when I say we dispose the session, I assume it's because it's in the DI when it's registered, and it should be in the DI somewhere when we register the service in the Orchard data. Maybe it has, yeah, somewhere. Not here. I know where it is. Maybe not changed here. But yeah, when we create the session, we also register it to be disposed. I need to check. As I don't see the dispose here, not even sure. It might be that we didn't have to dispose it before.
It's in a piece of code that you haven't changed.
Okay.
And I think just dispose through DI, so search for add scope dissection.
For what? Scope?
Add scope iSession.
iSession is scoped. How do you write it? Session. Yeah, that's what we do here. Okay. Register before dispose. No, we don't do that. So we can add scoped. No, that's what we okay. Add scoped. And then we pass a lambda and we return the session. But at that point, I don't remember if the DI is disposing it. I think I don't remember because I'm sure I find an issue with them. It was not doing the correct behavior, and they changed it. Because the idea is that if they don't create it, but I give it, then they should not dispose it because I give it. And in this case, I give the instance. So it might come from something else, but will dispose it. So they should not dispose it. So I don't remember if they do that. But here at the same time, register before dispose. So it's to commit the changes. Yeah, I have to check if we actually, I think we could dispose on it because on the profiles, I saw that some sessions were not correctly, were disposed, but we're still going into the finalizer, and I had to do a change to, actually, no, maybe it was just calling commit, and that's why. So they were, I saw the finalizer be called when they should not be called. So now when the decision is disposed, it's saying to the finalizer to not be called. I have to check when we dispose that or if the DI is disposing it. I hope the DI is not disposing it, but I don't see anything that disposes it, so that's interesting. Okay. Good. Questions? Did I miss something? No chat here. So this has been merged. So if you have modules that use the session, you need now to call save changes async, otherwise nothing will be saved. But you should not have any module that calls save. Flush still works the same. If you're not OpenID, then you're fine, I think. We'll see. That's it for YesSql 3, and lots of rough improvements also, lazy, doing things, less allocations, super great. And with the latest change I did this weekend, this morning, I did some more changes to do even less allocations. So the next update will get even less allocations. I don't want to patch it again. Or maybe I have the thing. I'm not sure. I have to check.
Did you make cancel async as well, did I say?
Yeah, I had to. So here we look at the changes. I had to make cancel async because now we can.
Yeah.
Sorry?
So what will cancel do now? Cancel the transaction and close?
Yeah. So before, when you called cancel, it was just setting a flag. And then on dispose, instead of committing a transaction, it will just roll back the transaction. But now, the same way save changes async is instantaneous, cancel async is instantaneous and cancels transactions and closes the connection when you call cancel async.
Does it remain a flag where everything else continues? If you continue saving stuff, it doesn't create a new transaction at that point. So is it still?
I was about to say it will, but it sounds so stupid. That
I just checking whether the behavior's changed or hasn't changed in terms of, because cancel used to throw the whole session
and we call cancel multiple times. So yeah, good question, but that will be very easy to check. So yeah, and now I actually have two flags there, one flag before. So this one, cancel sets the flag, release transaction. I think you can still call. You can still continue to, but cancel equals true. And then if you call save, doesn't care. But if you call save changes async, yeah, it won't, apparently it won't flush the thing. It won't take any change into account after that. It's not throwing any exception, but it will just ignore everything. Not sure it's the best thing to do, but I mean, that's a weird case also. Could be an option to say, oh, throw exception if you do bad things, or just continue and ignore. In this case, I think it's good, actually. I think that's good because it just sets the flag. So the same session is still used. You can still read. So your query still could go on, but at the end, it won't commit anything that you changed. So I think that's good. I like it. So this, as you said, if there are multiple modules reacting to the same event, one will cancel, the other one will still be called. They will still work. They can call save and call reads and everything, but at the end of the request, nothing will be stored. That's good. Yeah,
I think that's the behavior that works. It worked previously and it works now, so good. Great.
Okay. So that is good. I have this branch I want to talk about. The filter. Auto auto. I try to play with the auto setup thing. So auto setup doesn't work by default. It's a feature, so you have to enable the feature. And I think it's documented. You have to call add setup features, what we call auto setup in the CS project. So what I did in this branch is I just did that in the main web project we have to enable the setup. We might think about having this feature by default instead of like in the extension method that adds the default features like the theming, like the setup feature and things like that. That'd be interesting because you can only trigger if you have the correct environment variables. Otherwise, it doesn't do anything. So I have that, and what else? And then I tried to build on the .NET 6 because my goal with that is to be able to run benchmarks automatically. And while because these benchmarks are scripted, I don't want to. Well, I want to use auto setup because this way I don't have to script the UI. I can just pass the command lines or the environment variables to the app, and it will set up a site, and then I can benchmark the site with whatever recipe or properties I define. Okay, so I suppose through. And I want to do it on the .NET 6 because I want it to be part of the application that we track birth of the .NET 6 with, and also on the .NET 5 to find regressions between 5 and 6. So it will help us find evolution of our trip birth also. So here to build on the .NET 6, it's easy. We can just change the target framework on the props file, but there is this API that is not in the .NET 6 anymore. There is also this one we said we would have to remove also. I think we just ignore the warning right now, but it should be removed at some point in the .NET 6. I don't remember which one.
Something to do with the there's a
Azure SDK.
Yeah. We need to see if we can move to the new stuff.
Yeah.
And
it works for me. So right now I was not blocked by that. There is this new thing, if you have never seen that, .NET 6.0 or greater. So you can say .NET 6.0 or .NET 6.0 or greater. So in this case, I'm saying anything that is greater than .NET 6.0, don't call that. Okay. And that works. So, and I think, yeah, and when I run it, it was actually faster. And then Chantieri made a change, which I said I will mention. I rebased the thing multiple times. That's also why I only picked up this change after the first time it worked. Chantieri made a change, the good change, not blaming the change for Chantieri. I'm just saying that what happened after this change. What is Chantieri's change? This one. Chantieri made this change. And after that, it didn't work anymore on .NET 6. I'm like, what's happening? I thought it was my machine. So what I saw is that it wasn't working anymore. I got that actually. Let me show you because it's there. I'm trying to work on that. I got that exception when I was running the app on the .NET 6. It says display was not, the view was not found, and it searched in all these places for the view and it didn't find anything. I'm like, these are compiled views, so it should find them. And why? And I'm like, okay, they are compiled views, so there is a .views.dll file that should be there. And I went on the folder, and I was like, there is no .views.dll. Well, it's broken. So the views compilation was broken in .NET 6, and so there is no views.dll in .NET 6 in this case. And I'm like, and now I understand why it's breaking now and not the week before, because the week before this bug was there. And because of this bug, because it didn't find the compiled view and Razor dynamic compilation was on by mistake, it will compile the view on demand. So that's why it was working on .NET 6, because it was compiling the view on demand. But since it fixed this bug, now it can't find the view and it can't build it on production mode. So that's why since then I'm seeing the issue, and I'm like, we broke the generation of the views of DLL, and because if I go on .NET 5, I have the .views for the DLL with the same code, and that was weird. And the minute after I saw that there was no .views of DLL, there was an announcement on the SPNet repository. Sometimes timing is everything. So .NET/ASP.NET Core. I think it's ASP.NET Core announcement.
ASP.NET/announcements.
.NET announcements, no? Oh, yeah, you're right. No, it's ASP.NET because this one hasn't been migrated. Okay. And issues. Razor compiler no longer produces a view assembly. Boom. So that's a good change, right? It doesn't produce the view assembly. But what it does is, so before, what happened is that it was creating a different DL with all the Razor views. And that's how we load it. But now it's still compiling all the Razor views. But instead of putting them in a different assembly, it's putting them in the same assembly as a project that contains the Razor files. And then I checked 6.0. And if you open admin, let's say the one, it was orchard.contents, the one that it couldn't find. So orchard.contents, .dll, I open it. This is the one before, and this is a new one. And here, in the namespace ASP.NET Core generated document, we can find the compiled views. So if I take where is the use content, for instance, we should be able to understand what it does. Add classes, content item, and stuff like this. Okay. Oh, we have some dynamic. Ooh, I need to change it. So yeah. Oh, dynamic again. Wow, dynamic everywhere. It's bad for perf. What? Get result? What are we doing? What is that? That's weird. Okay, so yeah, so they are there. And then I'm like, I was relieved, like they are generated and we just have to change how we find them because there is some new metadata there. So this is what we generated before. And this is what is generated now. Okay. So that's good. But then I realized, okay, I will try to change the code. And there is a bigger issue, I think. Let me show you the issue. You will see. So this is a 6.0, okay? And this is the 3.1 here. I think it's super interesting to see the classes there. You see views, view imports here. Under this namespace, views, view imports. And if I go there, views, view imports, same thing, that's fine. But do you see the difference in colors? Like this one is a light gray. And this one is dark, okay? What does it mean? It means that this one is public and this one is internal. That's what the color means. And the issue with that is our main web app that references this project can't load the class because it's internal. So that's a change that I don't like, and we'll have to find a way out of it. I'm currently discussing about the impact of this change. I assume they don't want people to mess up with these classes, but at the same time, I want to mess up with the class. I want to use it from a different project. I didn't think about that scenario. So that's the current status. And I was so sad because it was working before. So maybe what I will do is in this branch, actually re-enable dynamic compilation so that I can run the benchmarks at least on 6.0. I can run them on 5.0 also, but I would like also to run them on 6.0 to help the team. So yeah, and so there was some change then on 6.0 also that was made based on the orchard traces. I'm not sure I mentioned that last week, but We optimized the dependency injection. David Fuller optimized dependency injection of the perf of dependency injection. And before this change, the main culprit for allocations was the dependency injection. And after seeing the dump of orchard, he made some improvements and now it completely disappeared. So it's much better. There is no more allocation from that. The next one is the view buffer from ASP.NET. That's another story, but that's good. Because we can give data to the team, they can then optimize the runtime to make things better for everyone in this case, not just orchard. That's it. You see, I'm in discussion with Safia, trying to convince her to make it public. That was the current discussion. Questions? No questions. Good. I think that's it. Then on time. No, that took no triage on Thursday. I have a doctor appointment and I've been waiting for it for 2 weeks, so I can't choose exactly when I have it. Next is I talked about it. I talked about it. All good. All good. 1-0 soon. We fix issues. We fix issues. Only that? Now let me fix it. There's a bug here. It's written as checked, but it's not the case. There's a bug. Interesting. Almost ready. That's weird. I thought there were like 1 or 2 more than that.
No, we closed a couple this week.
Awesome. Maybe awesome. That's great. So we just need to do more verification and ship it. We are ready. Minus all the questions you might have with the recent commits. We have to get some feedback and
the new logo.
And the new logo. That's we are blocked in the new logo. Yeah, we'll Gabor, can you tell us what we should do next? Because we voted on the new logo. Maybe you should share the result with Paris. And if we can get some assets, we can put in the repository so we can start.
Okay, I will tell it to Paris now.
I think there was a comment from Paris on the issue just today, actually.
Oh.
Doing something about it exactly along those lines.
Okay. Awesome. Just not forget about that. It's not a blocking issue. It's just to see it in the log of work to do. Oh, there's some PRs. So this one. Do we have to do anything for that? Do we have to do anything for that? What do we need to do? That's borderline. I don't think we actually need that. I will explain you why. So this thing here. Honestly, .NET versioning is not the easiest thing ever. So here, where do we use that thing? Here, you see? So we use that in ASP.NET Core application every. So these properties here, okay, these packages. I'm not sure we need everything here, but that's fine. So is that it? Yeah, that's it, just in these files. But when you have that, when you have a reference on it, it's part of the runtime. Is it?
I don't know, but I checked the build and it's still using the SDK 2.2.0.1 instead of the new one. It's not yet available, maybe on the build.
What do you mean SDK 2.0.1? I don't get it.
If you go and check the build result
of this pull request,
go to conversation, expand the checks.
So yes, on this pull request.
Yeah. If you click and if you look for in the search log filter, look for 5.0. In the text box search.
Because when you mention SDK, I mean, we install the SDKs there, so they are there. So then you say search for
search logs on the upper right, just below the text box. Search logs. Yeah, 5.0.
Nope. Maybe I have to expand.
In Windows, maybe in the Windows 1, maybe.
No, I have to expand. You have to expand first.
Okay.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, now it's fine.
See, line 8, it's still using 5.0.
No, okay, that's different. Okay, so these versions here, these are for the packages that are there, and these, I want to check that. The only way to see if it's the correct version is to look at the build output to see if it picked the correct version. So if I do that, just to be sure that there is a version for this patch release, there is. Okay, so that's too quick. Yeah, they might not be in the, so yes, for these packages, so so that's confusing because it's not a ASP.NET Core version, okay? And if it was the extensions, like this one, okay? So for instance, this one, where are they defined? Here. This one hasn't been updated. Okay, so we need to update this one and this one, but I think it should not be called ASP.NET Core. Yeah, maybe something like Microsoft ASP.NET Core packages, because it is not the version of ASP.NET Core. They might, someday they might have a different version than the version of ASP.NET Core. When you say here they have not updated here, this is not the version of .NET Core or ASP.NET Core, it's the version of SDK.
Yes.
5.0.2.0.1. So when you say it's not, oh, I see what you mean. It should be 2.04 or something now.
Yeah, because we specified on line 3, 5.0.star.
So this thing here is not taking the latest. I see. Yeah, I see. Well, it's okay. I know it's not okay because in this case, it won't use it. So that's bad.
Yeah, we don't know.
That's very bad. So we need to be, so this action is terrible.
Maybe because we just can wait a few.
No, that's very bad because we thought it would take the latest.
Yes,
it's not. So if, let's say, there is a patch like this, okay, we release 1.0 and there is a patch like this, and we need to, in this case, we don't need to update because we don't ship self-contained, we just ship packages that reference the .NET framework and not the smaller version. But for these packages, that will matter. So in this case, it's fine, but that could be an issue if we generate self-contained assets, like in a Docker file. And then we need to update the Docker file because it has self-contained assets. So this version should match again, and we need to regenerate again. I don't know if you use self-contained in the Docker. Chancellor is not here.
No.
So I don't know, but yeah. So
which one?
Sorry.
I don't think we publish a self-contained Docker.
Okay, so that's not cool. Yeah, that's bad. They should fix it because it's very easy to get the, well, I don't know how they pick the 5.0.2.0.1 when they call it the .NET here, how they find it, but their logic is wrong because there is, that's the worst thing. It's beautiful. I will show you I will show you. I have all the URLs that you need for that. Metadata, this one, which is the best. You should just open this file and look at that. This is not updated, by the way, but no, the latest SDK is 201. What? Yeah, so this file hasn't been updated, and that's how they do that. So I assume they don't know that there is a new version. But no, maybe actually, yeah. No, because the SDK ships with the version. So why is it just, yeah, so I have to check. But maybe it's just this file is not updated, and that's why. So that's how they do that. They do it correctly. It's just this file is not updated. I will send an email. It's not the first time it happens. Sometimes people forget to update the file. That's okay. But super useful file. Okay, if you want to get the latest version of ASP.NET, of SDK or whatever.
Yeah.
So, well, if you need to build things dynamically with the latest. So that's why actually it's not updated. Interesting. So that's good. I take back whatever I said, if I said anything. Good. Okay, so that's good. So continue to do that because of the packages that we reference, not because of the ASP.NET version, because this one is automatically rolled forward based on the SDK that is rolled forward. And because we don't deploy the packages from the runtime, but just not self-contained, meaning just our packages, not the runtime one. Okay, all good. Thanks, everyone. See you next Tuesday.
Ciao.
Thanks, Dave.
Bye-bye.